A very valuable resource here in the heart of Temple Bar. And our next story takes us to an estate house in the Irish countryside. During the Great Irish Famine, more than 1,000 people were shipped from Strokestown in County Roscommon to Quebec province in Canada. And now a group of young people in Strokestown have teamed up with the Montreal group to try to trace the descendants of those emigrants. It's a project which Alistair Jackson has discovered has brought these young people face to face with the terrible suffering of famine.
Strokestown Park House is one of many such houses open to the public. But what sets it apart from others is the Irish National Famine Museum in what were its stables. Visitors moving from the house to the museum move to depictions of a famine recognised as the greatest human disaster of 19th century Europe. Its impact on the Strokestown area was recorded at the time.
The museum is based around the original archive of documents that were found here in Strokestown House.
But while tourists look through the museum, a group of local teenagers are in the library of the old house learning about the research techniques they'll need to find links with the descendants of those forced to leave. They're taking part in the Strokestown-Quebec Connection Youth Theatre project. Between 1841 and 1851, County Roscommon's population dropped by nearly a third.
In that period lies the story, the tragic story of starvation, immigration, forced immigration, destitution, poverty, and all the rest of it.
Virginius was one of 4 ships which took over 1,000 tenants from the Strokestown estate to Quebec in 1847. Richie Farrell's using the Irish Newspaper Archive site to get more information.
158 died on the passage. 186 were sick, and the remainder landed feeble and tottering. The captains, mates and crew were all sick. The Black Hole of Calcutta was a mercy compared to the holes of those vessels.
Those appalling conditions meant some children were orphaned on the crossing and were adopted by French-Canadian families when the ships docked at Grosse Ile in Quebec. Some years ago, Grosse Ile records and Canadian contacts led Jim Callery to Leo Ty. Leo was then over 90 and living in Quebec. Leo's grandfather, Daniel, had been one of those Strokestown orphans.
When I went out there, I said, I must see this man. And it was exceedingly emotional. There's no doubt about that. So he, in French, told us a lot of facts about his family, about his grandfather, the ship he came on, and what happened.
Jim Callery bought Strokestown House over 30 years ago. He's preserved its records and later opened the Famine Museum. Today, he's showing a video of that meeting with Leo Ty. Leo speaking in French with an interpreter. Some of the people here may be relatives, and there's ongoing research on that.
Sometimes they went centering their without being able to sit down or lie down and find a space to lie down and sleep on the board.
What's it like to think that maybe there is a connection between your family and the Thai family in Canada?
It's touched, to say the least. Like, I'd just like to find out a bit more about my own family. I'm going to do a bit more research on it to find out how far we can go back.
Hi guys, Caroline here. Can you hear us okay? Yeah. All right.
Caroline Callery founded the Connection Project with funding help from Roscommon Integrated Development Company. The Strokestown and Montreal groups are in regular Skype contact, and research and arts projects were ways of deepening the connections.
We're doing this through a series of arts-based workshops, through quite detailed historical research techniques, and always in the frame of showing the path, not as an historic path, but coming right from the past to the present. With a mind on the suffering and injustice of famine, not just of the Irish famine, but right through to current day famine.
Famine memories are being uncovered. Emma Muldowney's grandfather, William, told her about her great-great-great-grandmother walking 30 miles each way during the famine to pay the rent.
It's interesting. You learn about the famine in school, but it's more interesting to know about your family in the famine.
When Major Dennis Mahan inherited Strokestown in 1845, it was heavily in debt. He called in Ross Mahan for advice. That advice? Massive emigration.
Dennis Mahan, to be fair to him, wrote back to Ross Mahan and said, I don't think that this is the appropriate time to carry out your plan. And Ross Mahan came back to Dennis Mahan and said, all right, grand, I'll resign from my appointment or my position. And then reluctantly, Dennis Mahan agreed that the plan would be carried out.
In November 1847, Dennis Mahan was the first landlord to be killed during the famine.
Major Dennis Mahan was shot at this bridge going down that road.
Another part of the project is making a video of the events of that time. So camera work, editing and presenting skills are being taught too.
It's a lot more difficult than you think. Watching the telly, you're like, oh, that's easy, and then you actually stand in front of the camera, you're like, oh God.
It's been nothing but good. It's great crack because like we've done everything ourselves. We've had the freedom to do everything ourselves. We wrote everything, we acted everything, we filmed, and it was just all us. And
certainly the arts medium was there to hold their interest. So looking at it through the lens, looking at famine through the lens of the arts, gave them an opportunity, I believe, to connect on a deeper level than just reading about it.
This is how the teenagers interpreted the pain of the famine.
It's opened my eyes to how severe it actually can be, and that there's still famine today, and that it's as bad as it was when it was in Ireland in the 1800s.
That story from Strokestown brings our programme to an end for this evening.